Here's what you should know about your local housing market in this week's Market Update. The market is currently extremely segmented. National stats and national headlines are showing that active inventory is currently increasing, days on market is increasing, and price negotiability is tipping a little more in the favor of home buyers. However, do be aware that your local market conditions can vary greatly from national market conditions, and often do in the areas that we live in. But also that even looking at the stats this week in the towns that we primarily operate in, even those are a little bit all over the place, not only varying greatly from town to town, but a lot of these towns are varying significantly from week to week. Part of that reason is somewhat because of the low inventory, so we don't necessarily have a significant sample size to go off of. So while sometimes the numbers might seem to fluctuate, it's simply this house sold last week for this much, and this week a different house sold, and that's it. We don't have enough to really get averages that tell us a whole lot about what's operating in the market. Now, on top of that, we've got a lot of disparity in the way that homes are being priced. In some cases, we're seeing homes priced somewhat aggressively, not moving as quickly. I'm also being surprised lately at some homes that I'm seeing priced aggressively and still getting in these wild bidding wars. And then also, whether strategic or by lack of experience and by error on the seller and agent's parts, I'm seeing some homes that are astronomically and comically overpriced. We see some houses come on the market this week where all the agents are talking and saying, "What's going on? That house is worth way more than that. Why are they pricing that low?" So do be cautious of that, especially in those situations. I see some buyers say, "I'm going to pass up on that house. Why would I buy that house? I'm going to make an offer on this house. This house is awesome." Well, of course the house is awesome. You can't afford it, and you have no shot of getting it. And then you kind of poison your mind in thinking that, well, I didn't get that house, but I'm going to start looking at more houses like this, when really those might be way out of your price range, and you're just chasing after a false misrepresentation. So do make sure you have an agent on your side that is not only knowledgeable and experienced, but truthful and honest with you, and willing to give you a dose of reality and cut through the noise that's out there for you, some of which is from the news media and some of which is from other agents that are trying to promote themselves more than they may be benefiting their clients. So there's a lot of noise, a lot of disparity in information. You really do need to be very discerning in who you work with and how you dissect that information. So that being said, let's get into the stats this week and see what's going on in these towns. We saw 47 homes come on the market this week in Morristown, Chatham, Madison, Harding, Morris Plains, Mendham, Chester, Bernardsville, Basking Ridge, and Randolph. That is a 24% increase from last week. So that is a nice, healthy number to see. We saw the most homes come on the market in Morristown and Township with 11 homes. That's a 38% increase over last week. Chatham, we saw 7 homes come on the market this week. That's a 250% increase over last week. And Randolph, we saw 9 homes come on the market. That is a 800% increase over last week. We saw Basking Ridge up 300%, Bernardsville up 100%, Mendham up 200%, Morris Plains up 150%, and Madison even. The only town we saw down from last week is Chester with no homes on the market, new homes on the market this week. Average list price of these homes this past week, $913,000 was the average list price in these towns. That's down 11% over last week. But even that is extremely segmented. So we saw the highest average list price this past week in Bernardsville at $1,525,000. That is actually down 46% from last week. We saw a pretty even split. About half of these towns are down, their average list price is down from last week. And about half of these towns, their average list price is up from last week. Interestingly enough, a majority of these towns, the average list price is over $1 million. So Morristown, Chatham, Madison, Harding, Mendham, and Bernardsville all had an average list price above $1 million this week. So those are some pretty healthy numbers. Total inventory. Total inventory is up 14% this week over last week, with 158 homes actively on the market. That total inventory is up in every one of these towns except for Basking Ridge, which we saw a 17% decline in total inventory. But a lot of these towns saw, either total inventory hold steady, or a slight, in some towns, a sharp increase in total inventory. Sold homes, we saw 19 homes sell in these towns this past week. That is up 6% over the previous week. The total homes sold in most of these towns is up or steady. We saw Madison and Harding had a decrease in the total number of homes sold over last week. Average sale price. Average list price this past week in these towns was $1,175,000. The average sale price in these towns was $1,105,000. So this past week in these towns we are analyzing, average homes on average sold for 4% below list price, which is surprising, and that is down from last week. And most of these towns saw homes sell for below list price. Not much. Most of them were, about 1 or 2% below list price. We saw Mars Plains. Well, Mars Plains only had one home sell. That home was on the market for a little while, significantly overpriced. So that sold at 39% below list price. But the rest of these were, and if they sold below list price, they were between 1 and 5% below list price. We did see 3 of these towns still sell above list price, with the highest one being Chatham at 115.7% above of list price. So 15.7% above list price homes sold in Chatham this past week. Average days on market for these homes that sold was 97 days on market. That is up 23% over the prior week's sold homes. Under contracts homes, we saw 27 homes go under contract this past week. That is down 18% over the prior week. Average list price of these homes was $1.4 million, which is up 33% over the prior week. And median days on market was 12. So for under contract homes, the days on market is actually down 44% over the prior week. The next week or so is going to be really interesting. We're expecting substantial snow. So I'm really curious to see how that is going to affect the market. I think it's going to put a little bit of a blip on things. I know I had some homes that I was anticipating putting on the market next week. It looks like we're going to be pushing those off a week, just because we're going to see a lot of the snow accumulation, and who knows who's actually going to be going out to look at houses. But if you are going to look at houses, please do try not to be too deterred by the snow. I had a lot of showings cancel yesterday. It turned out to be slush. They canceled entire day before for showings, scheduled for the afternoon. By the time that happened, everything was just melted. And a lot of those have rescheduled for over the weekend, when we are expected to see significant snow accumulation. So, try not to wait till the last minute, or try to wait till closer to the last minute to change your appointments around the weather. You might find that the time you were originally going to go was just fine, and the time you rescheduled for was not a good time. So I'm curious to check in with you next week, see what kind of snow we do end up getting and how that affects the local housing market. So thanks for checking in with me, and I'll catch you guys again soon.